and keep it out of harm's way. Tom Valentine is being thrown down and jumping up, and Alice and I are sitting there and watching. And I'm singing in my head, "We are not afraid. We are not afraid." And you can almost hear the brass knuckle crashing against Jerome's head. And I'm writing. And for some, I don't know how we got out. I saw Jerome go out the door. George Raymond, I don't remember how he got out. They threw Tom Valentine into the street. Alice and I got up, and I was kicked in the back, and I think that's why I still have this back problem. Alice was also kicked. So we're running down the street. Jerome jumps into the back of a moving truck. Tom Valentine is trying to get into a cab, and they pulled him out of the cab, threw him on the ground, and was kicking him and punching him. George Raymond, I don't know what happened to. I ran around the corner. The bus terminal was on Canal Street in Macomb, Mississippi. And when we got there, we didn't see any blacks. When I rounded that corner, a group of blacks just, I don't know where they came from, but they encircled me. And I stood there, my heart was pounding so hard, I could hear it. And I say to myself, you're gonna calm yourself down, you're gonna walk out of this crowd and walk up the hill like you're going to work in Miss Ann's house. And when you get out of sight, you're gonna run. Well, I'd never been to Macomb before. Hadn't realized that I was in a white neighborhood.
You didn't know where Miss Ann's house was?
I didn't know where Miss Ann's house was. And that's what I did. I started running. And I'm running and I'm running. Now, when we went on these campaigns, we dressed like we were going to church. So I had my heels on. And all of a sudden I hear, "Jody!" My eyes got that big. I said, how do these white folks know my name? And I ran faster. And I heard Jody again, and I ran even faster. And I outran the truck until it passed me up, and I saw Jerome in the back. It was one of the happiest days in my life. I was 18 and a half at the time. So we get in the truck, and they take us back to the Black community, to the White Castle Hotel and Cafe. There, Dr. James Anderson came and took care of us. When he had finished taking care of Jerome, Jerome walked over to me and said, "Get Bobby Kennedy on the phone." And I went. And I'm looking at him.
Bobby Kennedy was the Attorney General of the United States at that time.
And I'm looking at him like maybe he had one too many hits and doesn't know what he's talking about. And then he called out the number. So I had my little pad and I wrote the number down. And I called Bobby Kennedy on the phone. This was not only his number, this was his direct line. So when I made the phone call to Bobby Kennedy, he answered the phone. And the voice on the other end said, "Hello." I say, "Hello, I would like to speak with Attorney Bob Kennedy." And he said, "This is he." I say, "My name is Dorothy Smith, and I'm calling for Jerome Smith." And he said to me, "I'm aware of the situation. FBI agents are outside waiting to take you back to New Orleans." I'm 18, right? And I say to Bobby Kennedy, "Oh, no, they won't. We're going back the way we came, by bus." And I hand the phone to Jerome. To this day, I still have that piece of paper.
Wow.
With the notes that I was writing while Jerome was getting beat with Bobby Kennedy's number on.
Wow.
When we tried to go back to the bus terminal, well, let me say this before I continue. When we were first there getting beaten, not one police, not one, was in sight. When we tried to go back to take the bus back to New Orleans, police everywhere you go, and the crowd had doubled in size. So we decided we weren't ready for another meeting. So we told the cab driver to take us on the highway and let us out there, and we flagged down the bus, and that's how we got back to New Orleans.
Now, there's a part of this that you got to understand. How did Jerome get the number?
That's another story.
That's another story, and Jerome got to tell you the story. Because, no, Jerome was sitting in a meeting. Tell him about the meeting and what you said about Bobby Kennedy.
Before he goes on about what he say, is who arranged the meeting.
Yeah.
The meeting was arranged by James Baldwin.
Wow.
And people in this group that arranged this meeting and was at the meeting was Ossie Davis, Ruby D, Lorraine Hansberry, who else wrong? Go on and on. Harry Belafonte, Lena Horne, and these people were all at the meeting with Jerome and that committee of people met with Attorney General Bobby Kennedy. Jerome.
Before you do this, I want to thank members of the Malcolm X Grassroots Movement. I thank Truth and Melanie and all the members who are here. Let's give them a hand, please. What we're hearing today, you're not going to hear in the history books. I also want to thank Malcolm X Grassroots because they're the only organization that's one of the few that was chronicling the shooting of unarmed black men and women in this country. If it wasn't for them, we would know that there were over 300 shootings and 136 deaths. It's not just Trayvon. It's not just the ones we hear about. Our people in many cases are being slaughtered and unarmed all over America. And I'm going to set the foundation for after Jerome does that for the next piece. Internationally, we hear, and I like to use these pieces when we talk about young people. There's a 17, 18-year-old in Brazil by the name of Gabriel Machado. Yeah. She's leading a revolution to expose what's happening in Brazil in preparation for the World Cup. So this, I think she's 17, maybe 18 now. She's going, talking to everybody who will listen, social media, whatever, talking about how Brazil is trying to sweep their poverty, their drug problem, their sex trade problem, and all of the social ills under the rug to prepare for the World Cup. Well, she was asked, Norman Beverly, she was asked, well, you're just a teenager. You know, what are you talking about leading a revolution? You don't have anything, you can't do anything. And Jerome, she said, we will have a revolution of thought. And when everybody first begins to think alike, then maybe they'll begin to act alike. And maybe if we all begin to act alike, then we'll move alike. So here in this community, I hear too many people say, oh, I'm tired of me. Well, think. I'm tired of everybody getting together and talking. Well, think. And since we believe in energy, then maybe the energy of your thought will link up with somebody who thinks like you. And those who want to move because you think will begin to move because of your thought. Go ahead. Come on.
Well, all praise to the lady but in Brazil. Young for that 17 years old. But let me say, when it was time to go in the Parchment Penitentiary, we had young ladies from here that was 17 and 18. 17 and 18, gentlemen. When it was time to go in the court, and the judge looked at Julia Aaron and take me to jail. Every one of in our group, we set the pace. Now I'm coming out of something. There's a ritual here. And in that ritual, as the word says, know whom bow. Meaning you don't bow now. That's the way I live it presently, as old as I am. So when I sat with Robert Kennedy or Lee Strasberg from the Actors Studio, it was know whom bow. Turn red as a beat. Because the thing that stung him because of your addiction to greed and power compromises your sperm, and it's indecent for a woman to have a child for you because the humanity will not be real. You make Frankenstein to be person where you become something else. They did not publish that.
So is it.
That's truth. And he sat there, frozen. I was sitting right in front of him, and I didn't blink. Because it was no different when we was on the street in Maurice, our classmate who said the Indians were instrumental in making steps towards civil rights. Much of how I speak and what I learn come out of that spirit. I would stand on the porches with Montana, and we watched the parades, and he would say, he would call me Roman, say, Roman, they cannot beat us. It's in the 50s. They cannot beat us. You know, Rex was like a joke. But in that conversation, everywhere I went, I stood up in that spirit.
I want you guys to make the link to the question is, where are the young people? In all of our interviews this week, a lot of the people we've talked to talk about how they started when they were 15 and 16 and 17. So where's the breakdown? Is the chain broken? Are we in the young people's way? Go ahead.
Can I just, Claude Reese, who is another freedom fighter, shared with me. He recently got a book, and I apologize, I don't know who wrote the book, but he read a passage to me that said, and I'm paraphrasing it, that it was, they mentioned a young man from New Orleans who met with Robert Kennedy and a other host of people, and that his stance was so strong and he was so confident, and that he would not back down from his stance, that it was his movement, which was Jerome Smith, who had Robert Kennedy to change President Kennedy's mind on that civil rights bill. And Kennedy was assassinated before he could do anything. But in the book says that it was the impact of Jerome's presence in that meeting that changed the mind of John F. Kennedy. And I need to get that book to I'll get that book to Jennifer, whatever it is, a reference.
Go on. The question of where the youth are at. Simple answer. Where we at?
Absolutely.
That's our children.
No.
Absolutely.
Where we at? What are we teaching? What are we exemplifying in word and deed? And when we look at what the children are doing, that's basically telling you what the adults are doing.
Because our children are the real Americans. The real Americans. Because they imitate the powers that be in the country. That is, say, you got it, I want it. That's no different with George Bush, and from George Washington to George Bush done throughout the world. What's missing when I was a youngster, see, I understood the value of saying good morning and good evening. So when they put me out of, I was supposed to leave Southern University. So when I come in town from the demonstrations in Baton Rouge, I see Reverend Alexander and other folks picketing where our share is, by the Venice Garden store. I just joined the line. I just got in the picket line because I was against injustice. And it was these elderly men, they was picketing, and I joined in there. But let's go at it again. Our children are missing one element. They are born to me without fear.
Yeah, Pat Rice.
You see, the absence of fear plus spiritual consciousness equals liberation. That's Malcolm X. That's all of us. The absence of fear plus spiritual consciousness is liberation. Now somewhere,
Number 4.
I'm not speaking about church in terms of religious
change@gmail.com.
denominations. I just said earlier, sometimes we become secularized. We enter the world in spirit with freedom
504.
and free, and we
432.
become secularized. And when we become
5361.
secularized, we lose that spirit. Now, we cannot talk about children on man's clock. You know, like the time of the day. There's another clock with no arms on it. It's a spiritual clock. We none knew when we step back to the annals of history, were any of the names that we identify as people of struggle as we go backwards. So we don't know what's going to happen with these children because they're on another clock. We are allowing the secular to define them. This is why that boy was shot in the head.
All right.
Because they cease, we still are 3/4 of person. We are still the wholeness of nothingness in their eyes. So it's important for us to see what it was in the first black man who said no to the kidnapping. That was spiritual. This is a long, Harry Belafonte got a thing he called a long road to freedom. This is a long road. It's about non-surrender. The young lady that Oliver mentioned. Well, there's children all over the world.
That's right.
In some kind of way, it's going to connect. I may not be here, but it's going to happen.
That's right.
Because the wrongness will not survive.
And you're right.
The children can teach us something. I was in a meeting once in 1964. And they had this music going on in the Bronx. Some was calling it rap. But it was a new and an old experience of expression. And there was John Killings, the great writer, and James Baldwin. Forget who the other person was there. If I'm not mistaken, we was at Dr. John Henry Clark's house, the great historian, one of my mentors. So, in that house, James Baldwin said, and then Killings made some other points, that what is being called rap music will not be denied. Look what it is today. But he also said the poison of commercialization will not allow its true mission but to live. Said that then. See, the world is going to grab it. They cannot stop it. See? So he was saying that the literary content of what they call vulgarity, etc., that did not matter. Inherent in the beat was the closest thing to your mother's heart when you're being processed for life, the rawness of it. The world wanted. That comes from our children.
And you're right.
Hold on. Yes.
Follow that.
Follow that. I want to hear from the. We got all these people come up in here, and they got all kinds of things going on in New Orleans. People could be other places. I want to know why. What was it that got huh? Why all these people come up in here, sitting here listening to this? So let's start from the back and come on for. Just call out your name, and if you want to say why you came, fine.
Excuse me, my brother.
Absolutely.
I'm under the impression that we came here to critique and look at the 60s in New Orleans, right? 1960s, 50s, 60s New Orleans. Am I right? Is that what the theme was?
Yeah, history of criminal position.
And there was a lot of formations and a lot of individuals in the 60s that unrecognizable because they're dead now. They was killed by the police department. They were betrayed by some black folks, some of them in this room, historically. So what I'm saying is, I see a lot of confusion among our people because ideologically, you can be fearful, but overcome fear. I've been fearful many times in combat, fighting against the wrong enemy. I've been in many situations where I've been fearful without able to maintain my coolness and execute what I gotta execute. So being fearless is suicidal, right? Having fear and overcoming fear at the right time and really act upon whatever your objective is important. What I'm saying, when I see the 60s, when I came back, when I left this city in 63, I was affected by a lot of things that was happening nationally, right? So when I got back in New Orleans in 66, stopping off in New York, in California, the Black Panther Party, there was a group called the National Committee Against Fascism. That was a precursor of the Black Panther Party entering into New Orleans.
Yeah, Malik was
Then the
on
Black
radio
Panther
talking
Party
about
came
it
up.
today.
I heard it this morning. Then it was the Republican of New Africa here. There were a lot of formations that was not into integration and not talking about no civil rights stuff. They were talking about African liberation struggle. And it took off from there. I have nobody to talk about that yet. So far.
And you should introduce yourself. What I'm saying is, all the people that's coming out here, if you're coming out here, you're coming for a reason, right? And we should at least recognize each other. And we might even be surprised at who is here, amongst us. And we should know that. We should not just look for one or two people to be leaders and we don't know each other. We're going to have to know each other if we're going to make a change. So, Sekou, why don't you give them your name so people know?
I mean, if anybody's qualified to be up there,
I see Brother Sekou here, and a lot of brothers. My name is Sekou. I got my name in 1969 in New York. It was given to me by a group of Pan-Africanist brothers and sisters in New York. That's how I got my name. When I came back home, after trying to escape from the FBI, we started some more action. That's a lot of things.
And you also opened one of the first, but you also opened up one of the first, what we call head shops back then, and you practiced the collective responsibility.
It was the 7 principles.
That's right. And that was on St. Bernard. That's right. On St. Bernard Avenue. Yeah.
So start. Yeah, come on.
Hi everybody, I'm Jazzy Ellis. I'm not from here, but I'm here for good. I'm here because I'm 25 and I'm frustrated. I'm a high school teacher and my kids don't know their history.
That's right.
And I'm sorry, I was get emotional.
It's intentional.
Today in class, I'm a math teacher who's supposed to teach math. But today in class, to start off, I wanted to talk about their goals, what they want to do. Some of them aren't even thinking about the future because they don't want to make it. They don't think they're going to make it. People have told them they're not going to make it. And then I said, well, this is the 50th anniversary of the March on Washington. What's that? They don't know anything about it.
You're correct.
And so I'm frustrated because I don't know what I can do. I don't know, like, the spirit that y'all had growing up. How can I put that into these kids?
Wow.
Excuse me for one point. So many people, teachers in the public school system right here, right through y'all, right? That's good because, like, y'all see the condition among the youth in the public school system, like the observation. We stopped struggling in 1960 when King was killed. Black folk were traumatized. Oh shit, FBI is serious. FBI said, Geronimo Pratt. 28 Panthers getting killed. New York, Chicago, New Orleans. Pop, pop, pop. Police was killing people. The white man is a murderer. And I think a lot of people got shot. Damn, look at the King. Look at Nelson. Look at all the other brothers and sisters. Look at that brother in the Republican West. Look at Detroit. Look at LA. Look at Oakland. Look what happened to the ones out. Look what happened to New Haven. That's the history. And the history of struggle, you got to pay a price. And what I'm saying, you got to be relatively healthy in the struggle, physically. You got to be relatively healthy mentally in the struggle. And my frustration, my frustration at 7 years old, I see a lot of brothers and sisters that grew up in New Orleans, struggling around some very fundamental issues about our people, and I don't know where they're at right now. They're comfortable and they're fat. Very comfortable, fat physically, and their minds is very flabby. I ain't got to call them no name.
And you may want to get into the woodwork counters and something else. Yeah.
Well, sorry guys, I have one else one other thing to say. I feel like we're all, not all, sorry. I feel like as a community, we're fighting each other. I think about like the Arab Spring, how it's so easy to get 5 million people on the street when something goes wrong in your country, but for us, we can't get one protest. And if we do have a protest, it's a laughingstock. It's a bunch of hippies. When are we gonna get on the streets?
For the school teachers, there's a publication that we put together that you'll be interested in, and will see me afterwards, and I'll tell you about that. But you can go to sacnola.com, and the books, we have our books there. You can download a PDF free, you can read it online free, or you can buy it if you choose to buy it. But we have one called A Long Ride, the history of social struggle in New Orleans, that's constantly being updated, and which we've had students to research it and write. So it's not like old folks writing it, it's, students write it as they research the history and so forth and so on, and talk about different things. I think that you bring up the question of schools. The schools, I don't even know where to start with that. We're working on a book called From A to Z, a critique of public education in New Orleans. What's happening in New Orleans was not about education. It was about money. Which most people don't realize is that before the storm, and I want you to listen closely, the budget for the city of New Orleans, over $500 million.
Yeah.
$551 million.
$550. All right. That budget was smaller than the school's budget. I've said it right. The budgets for the schools, for all these parish schools, was larger than the city budget. And what the capitalist class decided, you got to remember now, they were going through a recession. Capitalism believes got to constantly expand. In a recession, where you going to get more money? And what they looked at, they said, the greatest single pool of money we can get our hands on is the school budget. The school budget. If we privatize that, we got more money than the city of New Orleans. Can you imagine that? More money than the city of New Orleans. So they started carving that up. That's what that's about. That's about money. It's not about education. They ain't did jack in terms of education. And I don't want to go too far off into it, but just look at this. Look, you go right down the street. We on Bayou Road. Head back Bayou Road. Go across to Esplanade. You're going to see John Mack, right? Y'all know John Mack, right? Yeah. Some of y'all know John Mack. Some people that don't know, it's a high school, public high school. John Mack has got less than 300 students in it, right? Less than 300 students. Now listen at this, Oliver, because this you understand this. Oliver from the lower 9. We can talk this way. Oliver, talk to me. Before the storm, the superintendent of schools made roughly $10,000 a year?
$110,000, $15,000
a year.
A year.
And that person was in charge of 124 schools, right?
Yeah. 84,000 kids.
Yeah. 80-some thousand students.
Yeah, 84.
Almost 90,000.
On Esplanade Avenue at John Mack School, they got three people in that school who are making more than $100,000 a year. 3 people who are making more than $100,000 a year. 3 people, less than 300 students. One school, that's all they're responsible for, but each one of them is making more than $100,000 a year. They talk about the miracle of education. What they don't tell you is that the schools that are doing quote unquote well have twice as much money and they don't share shit. They get twice as much money as the other schools. It's not sustainable. This is not something that can keep going. This is a highway robbery. They're just taking all the money they can, and you got people coming down here, right? You heard a carpetbagger?
Hello.
Committee want to say something?
Just in terms of the sister that's the math teacher. I know that I could not work in the system as it is. They were firing me. Because I had third graders reading the autobiography of Malcolm X, and we saw the movie as a classroom. What happened today? Every classroom should have been shut down, and the discussion should have been held.
Yes.
But when they restructured everything, they removed the names of our schools. They removed neighborhood schools. They took the roots from our kids. And it's those same kids, I believe, that are out here committing the crimes that have never been comforted because they were in that water. And they feel, as one student said to a teacher, excuse the expression, my elders, y'all fucked us, y'all fucked over us, y'all left us here to die. And that's the same kids that are 15 and 16 years old today that are in our schools. So if you take the roots from someone, then they have nothing to stand on. So you have a juvenile justice system that's believing in locking them up. There's no social services. There's no special ed. There's no union for teachers. So hear me out. So until you find the strength within yourself and to have like conversations and like ways of thinking, the teachers union were organized in Gail Glapion kitchen way back in the 60s. They did it because they had to do it for survival. So you all are gonna have to know within yourselves, within your hearts of hearts, this ain't working for the kids. And if my job here is to strengthen them, now it's not about you being the teacher, because you're the facilitator of learning, but you're learning too with them. But that you have the responsibility as an educator, as a child-centered educator, as somebody watching somebody's child, your child, then you're gonna have to take a stand within yourself.
We got one comment in there, and I'm gonna get to two historical incidents of resistance. One was the Woolworth counter takeover in Canal Street, and the other was the Black Panthers are celebrating 47 years. They're having their conference here in October, and when the Black Panthers surrounded the house and actually stopped the police from actually with
people
dead
surround
boy.
the house.
Go ahead.
All I want to do is ask you, stop blaming Katrina. We got to take responsibility for our actions. And I am a mother. I am a single parent. I should have stayed with my husband and raised my son. Women can't raise sons. We need the men there. We got to take responsibility. It ain't this one's fault. It ain't that one's fault. It ain't your fault. We ain't getting nothing of these children. The only thing is we just got too comfortable, complicit. We forfeited everything. Everything is fine. We shall overcome. We should have been able to overcame. We got to take responsibility for ourselves. I look at black mothers. Black mothers have to take and come to themselves. If you show your man that you respect yourself, he'll respect you. Amen. We got to get back to ourselves and stop blaming everybody. Yes, we have all of these demons around us, but what we gonna do? What we gonna do? We got to take back our life. Take back our life and stop looking for the government and the mayor and this one. We got to take back our life.
Okay. Kalama and Donnie.
When I was in high school, there was a woman who could, she could explain it to you in such a way that you felt shame if you didn't do something. I'm talking about Aretha Castle Hill.
Oh, yeah.
And first time I got arrested down there at Woolworth, And at the time, I was a member of the NAACP Youth Council, but Aretha was leading the sit-ins at Woolworth and at Swagman's, because we went down to Swagman's too, you know, and they didn't take us to jail that time. But at Woolworth, they took us to jail. But Aretha was leading it, and Aretha was with CORE. And the schools eventually became two things that Aretha worked on after the Civil Rights Movement. 63 was the March on March, 64 was the Civil Rights legislation, 65 was the Voting Rights Act. And Aretha said the two big issues we got to deal with are healthcare and education. Healthcare and education. In fact, Aretha became the head of Charity Hospital, you know, and was fighting that fight until the state closed it down. But that's another story there. But I'm saying that what you had were people who were trying to work on figuring out how we can do something to bring about change for the masses of our people. The problem we face now is that the majority of us, for one reason or another, and it's various reasons, not one single reason, but for one reason or another, the majority of us have decided that the way to advance is to become good Americans. And if voting would set us free, we'd have been free a long time ago. But you cannot argue with the people, right? You got to be amongst the people and listen, because some of that's going to play out. And just like right now, people are getting frustrated around this issue of education with the young people, right? Around this issue that they see we don't have nothing. We done had black mayors from now to yonder, and we still ain't got nothing. We don't even have the projects no more. Even though the projects were standing after Katrina. Solid. They tore them down. They tore them down. We don't have that anymore. So anyway, when I was coming up, Dodie, I met Dodie twice. First, you know, we passed in the movement. Then, when I got to the Jazz and Heritage Foundation, and we had to struggle with Koindu, and Sekou will tell you all about that struggle. It's a long struggle. Dodie was one of the people who's never given credit when they start talking about starting the Jazz Fest. Wow. But she was right there day one. She was there day one. They never gave her credit. And as it moved on, they tried to move on past her, and Dodie would take a stand. And what they started doing was building a little fence and say, okay, Dodie, you got that part. We leave you alone. You go there. And that was the traditional jazz musician. Dodie was the first one to say that we got to take care of the elder musicians, the elder black musicians. And she fought that fight within the Jazz Fest. She's not gonna tell you about that because she's humble in terms of what she has done. But that's a very important part of it. We need to understand that there have been people that have been fighting this fight for a long time. And part of the problem is we just have not heard each other. We have not learned who each other is. Right now in this room, we got a bunch of people who have made contributions at different levels and at different times. And maybe one of the things we ought to do is just get to know each other. That's why I'm asking people, you know, I mean, Beverly McKenna's sitting here. Beverly, there's so many things Beverly could be doing other than trying to do the Tribune. You know, when I say trying to do the Tribune, I mean, y'all don't realize how hard it is to keep a newspaper going. She keeping the newspaper going when the Times-Picayune giving up the ghost. You understand what I'm saying, Jerome? And she telling the truth in the newspaper, you know? But a lot of people don't even know. You don't even know who's here. And so what I'm saying, you say, what can we do? One of the things we need to do is learn each other. And maybe we ought to get together once a month. We come together, introduce ourselves, say who's who and what they're doing. You need to be able to walk up to somebody, shake, I'm glad I hear this, and so forth and so on. So like the sister that spoke up, she's a school teacher. I can address you that I'm in the schools every day, you know.
That's how we organize as Southern University before the voice sit-ins. We'll get together in dormitories, starting conversation, move to the next dormitory, integrate the people in it. We had a thing called Conversation Book tonight, and along the campus, spreading information. And ultimately, we were able to put 5,000 students together and march downtown. And it sounds simple, but it can be magic when it's done.
If anybody wants to get food and drink, can do that now while we continue the discussion. There's Mario and this brother.
You know, like, I was in the public school system too, and I don't recollect what you said. First of all, there's a very, in New Orleans problem is the black community. High Yellow, you know, I'm very important black person, I got a job, I'm from this university, Xavier, whatever. New Orleans public schools, I went to all public schools from 40, I guess, when I first grade to 12. I went to Craig, went to Nelson, went to Bell, went to Booker T. And I'm looking at it, and then I came back from the service, I got a job. A woman in the community said, LeVar at that time, I want you to work in the school. And I worked as an audio technician. And I observed the dynamics in the school. And I was from that neighborhood. So I'm gonna take some of the Teach for America people off the hook. There was teachers that had a big fro, no teeth, big old afro, like she teeth, everything. Hey, Africa don't have no afro. That's coming from Negro teachers. They got in the public school system in New Orleans in 1960. There was Negro teachers. Talking some very reactionary, backward politics. Tell the truth. Some of them was radical, some of them I could relate to. But I'm like, I was in more confident with some of them teachers in 1960, 67, 68, and they were black teachers in the public school system. I worked with a lot of them. They wouldn't strike. They had a strike in 68. I wouldn't strike. I wouldn't strike with it. 3 teachers striking at Nelson. All the rest of it out the window. Like they fell a comrade. I'm talking about the public school, the Soviet Union. The contradiction, we got to deal with the reality of what's happening to us. And this is brought some real stuff to us now. But you said kids don't know the history. And I know that to be a fact, because guess what I do? Every day I'm in that, what I do. And they don't know nothing because why? The adults stop struggling. And why they stop struggling? Out of fear, out of satisfaction. I don't even own it. Let me tell you something. I never owned a car in my life. I'm in the most violent civilization in the world, right? I never bought a car in my life. I'm 70. Never bought a car. Why? Because what's happening, we have struggle comes from contradiction. And what's right now in America, we full of contradiction among black people. I don't even talk about white people. Just talk about myself. And some people like what I be saying. I know that. I know that like what I be saying because I bring the truth. I live a simple life, a Spartan life. I'm ready to fight tomorrow, and I'm civic. I'm always ready to fight.
One of the things about the children, you know, last week a group of children from Tamarina Fan was on the street corner. And they passed by the RTA building, and on that building they have A. Philip Randolph's name. And here we had some 7, 8, 9-year-old kids that knew about A. Philip Randolph and the March on Washington. They asked the conductor, did he know anything about that name on that building? The conductor said, I'm gonna be honest, it's just a name. Ooh. But our kids, they knew that. See? So then the RTA invited them to come down to the building, blah, blah, blah. The next day, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10-year-old kids went to 15 Quran with that project. And that's where John Scott exhibit is. Yes. And we have the habit of going in the summer, going to the Spirit House, John Scott, going to the gates in the park. So what they do, they go into this building. They were fascinated by the poles and all that. We had been talking about his work. And they go into the building where the young kids, they want to lie on the floor to look at the ceiling, to see the kinetic with everything he had developed. There was a woman behind the desk, she hollered, then they were sitting on the couch or whatever, and she said, they can't go there. And one little sister said, what you mean?
Yeah.
11 years old. She said, I said, they can't go there. And I said, miss, you don't want to, I'm not going to turn around. But I guarantee you they ain't going to move. I guarantee you they ain't going to move. When that little girl spoke, that meant something was wrong. So given what they go through in the camp, they knew. The only place in the country where 300-400 children come in there in the mornings and recite strange fruit.
Yeah.
Can't match it nowhere else. I did not turn around. They call the police, so they call it security. I say, man, you don't want this. You the security? Here, you need the superintendent's number. Call the police, because they ain't going to move. Because what was happening there, if I would allow them to move, that meant they would have surrendered.
Yes.
And that would have crashed them. But you know what was worse than that? They had black professionals. Did not stand with them.
That's right.
Who was working in government, who was working this, that, and the other. And they had 3 little girls, say, sisters, or 2 of them sisters. Said, well, before we leave here, putting a hand on the hip, took and said, look, we don't feel nothing in here. Little girl. So that spirit is there. You know, it's like when we sat on the stools on Canal Street with young people, go to jail in the parish prison. There's a thing, it's something about osmosis.
Right.
The unheard messages of determination enter the spirit. They just need opportunity where the adults will stand with them.
Thank you, Jerome. Brother.
My name is Dal. I'd like to share some with my sister that's a teacher. I believe that the contributions that our ancestors have made to mathematics, science, and different areas such as that, we can go back and research that. A lot of times we put up barriers because of different religions and things like that. But the Black Moors, they contributed a lot to mathematics and numbers. A lot of the tribes in Africa had supreme mathematics. You know what I'm saying? So we have to look back into that and find something that can spark these kids' mind that they can relate to, that can make them want to study mathematics like no kid ever want to do. You know what I'm saying? Because one thing I appreciate about Islam, and I'm not trying to get personal about it, is that it does spark something inside a person for wanting to learn. Malcolm X is a perfect example. You know what I'm saying? And we have to use all of these things in order to try to help reach our youth. You know what I'm saying? When you look at the Chinese culture, the Hindus, all those are our people. You know what I'm saying? You look at the culture and the things that they bring to mathematics and scientists, and you use that. And you try to fascinate the kids with the ability of learning these things. And you bring it up to date, and you say, now look, this is something that you can learn. You know what I'm saying? So don't give up on it. You know what I'm saying? Research deeper and look deeper for things that can intrigue their mind.
We got
even
one.
Music. Thank you.
Thank you. We got this brother. We're going to kind of let everybody get right here. Sister, brother here, Moses, and then Brady. Go ahead.
What's up, everybody? My name is Mario Avenue. I'm originally from Chicago, Illinois, and moved down here about 5 years ago. I play music down here.
Speak up, sir.
What I was going to say is that, first of all, most all praises to y'all strength, you know, during that time of struggle. The thing that I kind of notice and that kind of frustrates me is that when you become aware and enlightened, you know what I'm saying, of the struggle of our people and the struggle of our forefathers, a lot of the younger generations, like early 20s down to teens and the kids, when you try to explain to them those type of things. We live in a society where things is false, and we feel so far removed from the struggle that even like when you got something like Trayvon case, and it is what it is. Profiling, well, who did they create profiling for? For, you know what I'm saying, for us. And when you can hear black people amongst themselves even argue why he was murdered, oh, well, it wasn't racial, it was just a bad lawyer. Well, you know what I'm saying? When that can become an issue, you see the younger generations are so far removed from, and it's a false perception. I mean, it's to the point that you could watch a rap video and it might have like a famous white rapper and he might say nigga, you know what I'm saying? Yeah, I mean, it's coming, you know what I'm saying? Because I'm gonna get short, but I was watching something in the laundromat. It was a sitcom, and these this man and this lady was like Mindy Project or something. I was watching it in the laundromat. I was doing my clothes, and the lady was like, they was at a party, and the lady was like, yeah, if I hear the N-word one more time. She was an Indian lady, and the cat was a white dude. He was like, yeah, but if we say it's like we're racist, you know, and it was just, they made light of it so much. And, you know, just from coming out of what black people in this country came out of to making light of that again on TV, having a black president, wow, you know what I'm saying, a young black brother could just be murdered in the street. It says something about the consciousness of our people. It's like, I'm gonna wrap up, but like I could be talking with, you know what I'm saying? All right, I was in Spain a few weeks ago. I'll make it quick. I was in Spain a few weeks ago, and this was you know, the whole Trayvon case was just wrapping up, and as we were headed over there, we were all talking about it, and the people in Spain was just shocked, you know what I'm saying, about there's still an issue going on, and then, you know, just listening to us amongst ourselves, the different stances that we had in this band, you know, about the outcome of the case, it says a lot, you know. So when, you know, I'm always talking, you know, about the stuff, and they, Mario always preaching such and such and such and such, but on a deeper level, it says that we don't know, you know what I'm saying, because a lot of my peers, some of them might be, you know, about a good 10, 15 years young, 35, you know what I'm saying? They might be a lot younger, and their perspective about their things is different. As a bass player that I played with, hey, nigga, what's happening? You know, and just come, like, saying crazy stuff, just trying to relate, but all the white people be around me on Frenchman Street, hey, driving, nigga did it, and it's like, man, why we gotta dress each other? Like, you know what I'm saying? But see, it's like, well, you know, it's just like, it's getting further and further away as far as the magnitude of the seriousness of the struggle.
So good evening, and first of all, do I have permission from my elders to proceed?
Proceed.
And so I don't know if you remember me, Brother Jerome, but my name is Vanessa Turner Gibson. I come from Chicago, but before I start, I'll go ahead and let you alienate me if you want. I am the goddaughter of Reverend Jeremiah A. Wright Jr. And I am here basically on a spiritual sojourn because I retired from State Board of Ed in Illinois, didn't have any intention of moving here, and a job was sent to me to work at Joseph S. Clark, which is the high school that my mother graduated from in 1951, the first graduating class. Walked into Clark, and on the wall of Joseph S. Clark is the graduation class of 1951 that has survived every hurricane, and it was still on that wall. So it's nothing but God and divine intervention that I walked into, and this year have become the dean of students, and I am the agitator in my building. All right. I spent time at Hunter's Field with one of Jerome's sons, Stanley, and I can tell you our children are dying. And as an outsider, it hurts my heart, because I was the Chicago cousin that came home. I'm a Tanette, I'm an English, I think you know my cousin, Richard English, Octavia is my aunt. So I come from a family of educators from Booker T. Washington, Joseph S. Clark, Craig, and it saddens me because our children don't know their history. They don't know their world history. They don't know their New Orleans history. They don't know who Joseph S. Clark is. And I work in a building with phenomenal educators who have in our mission statement, Jerome knows I've said this, our children will live up to the legacy of Joseph S. Clark, and they don't even know the legacy. And so it behooves me to say to you, I'm a solution finder.
I'm trying to organize a conference to bring in some of the most phenomenal African American educators to New Orleans. Because if they're going to teach my children, then you need to teach them in a culturally responsive way, and they don't even know what that means.
All right.
And so icons like Donna Ford and Gloria Billings Lasley and Reverend Jeremiah Wright have agreed to come to New Orleans if we can unify and provide a space and a time, with Tambourines and Fans as being one of the organizations that we want to continue to support. And so see me, I'll find a piece of paper, whatever, but right now I get permission from Jerome to proceed with this project because I believe in the ancestors, and the elders are the ones that need to guide us, and we can't forget what they've done. And so for my sister who said what happened today, I shut school down at Clark today at 2 o'clock. Because at 3 o'clock there were bell ringing and our president was speaking. So
That's
every
right.
classroom tuned in to our president. And at 3 o'clock we had the brass band playing because that is Clark's legacy. And they played We Shall Overcome. They played Amazing Grace.
All right.
And they sent kids back to class in a second line fashion that you would have been proud of. And so I'm looking for a way to organize educators. And I want to talk to my elders. Before I leave here, I will have organized a story that will tell the legacy of Joseph S. Clark, the early years. And so if you are an alum of Clark, please see me. I will be at Huntersville whenever I get the phone call and Stanley says, Jerome says, come. I know him as Big Duck. And Stanley, y'all know it's Two Scoops.
Yeah.
Those are the individuals that I work under their leadership. And so I thank you all for having this gathering because I was on my way home and my God said, stop. So thank you.
Let me say one thing, please, just one thing. I went back and I want to speak to one of my grandchildren. She's 4 years of age, and I was telling her I was sitting in this meeting. But I also was telling her, she's telling me, kid, I was telling her that, you know, I want you to write a story. It's not about grandfathers, blah, 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 blah. It's about that television. I said the other night they had some kind of award show on. And on this award show, white kids can imitate our creativity. Can imitate that. I said, you do the little taps, you draw the little pictures, you got these little dances and songs that you sing. Somebody gonna kidnap that like they did our people. You know? It is young lady, whatever her name is, you know, it's like Britney Spears. All of them done stole from us. Amen. You know, now this girl is on there, but this boy got this big hit out of her off of Marvin Gaye's tune, but the content, the mixes of that was all us. Right? Now the boy bands, you know the bands like Bobby Brown and all them come out of. They don't allow that to happen no more because the white boys imitate us, right? And they put us to the back burner. Now this girl the other night, they got this thing that girls be doing in the streets all around the project with the bomb, what they call it, twerking, whatever, twerking. Now, if she gonna get up there, she gonna showcase that. She gonna showcase that. She gonna make it unholy because Miriam Makeba was with us one night at the Apollo, and they had the African dancers doing that. But if you went around the corner by the Holy Ghost church where there was nothing but tambourines, in terms of that kind of expression, it was there. Now here, the man mentioned in the East, right? What's the lady's name? Janet Jackson. Her nipple fell out of her bra, and they buried her professionally. Here this white girl is imitating that, and they giving her greater access, but to the new creative thing. And when they, all that, the things they doing, that bounce, that this, that other come from right here, and they eliminate our presence. We need to think about that, young people, especially those of you that's into that music thing. That's serious, serious, serious what they doing on these award shows.
Yeah, if you guys could just like follow each other. I know Mama Jen's been here all day, but we want everybody to be able to get their comments in. Go ahead, sir.
I would like, my name is Calvin, and I would like to hear from the panel. When you all was young, y'all took things serious. Now, when I was coming up, everything was funny to me too. It was funny. I spent the many years in prison, and even trying to educate the guys who was coming from the street during this modern time, to try to get them to understand that everything is not funny, and some things are to be taken serious. Since I've been home, when I talk to a young person about the consequences of getting in trouble, when I talk to their parents about the consequences that their children run wild, and what our Lord says about a person once he get arrested and get convicted, is not taken serious. I would like to hear from the panel what was done for you all to make you all realize that what was happening in the 60s wasn't funny.
Good question.
It was serious. So our kids, so we could help them uplift one another to take our situation serious. I would like to hear some discussion about how that happened with you all, that we might learn something and help us with our kids.
We got your question.
You know, in my situation, it was really unique. When I would go pay bills on Canal Street for my mother, if they didn't put Mrs. before her name, I better not come back home. You understand what I'm saying? They would not put Mrs. or whatever before a black person's name if she was married, nor would they put Miss. And the thing is that we're going through a generational transition. We stumbling and fumbling, but we're gonna land somewhere positive. See, we have to say that the youngsters done created a music that dominates the world. Some benefits from it and some don't. At the camp, we tend to play some of Tupac's music, some of his socially significant tunes, especially where he speaks about his mother. We also tell the young boys to go home and do the research on breast cancer because they have a mother, a sister, or whatever. That alters their temperament in terms of their relationships with females. In the camp, sometimes we are lucky to maintain a certain thing there. I think what we have to do, we have to believe in the children. We have to believe. You know, we none knew where Malcolm was gonna arrive. We none knew. We don't know what channels they gonna go through. We don't know. We have to continually flash the light, constantly flash the light. All comprehension is not about words. Some things is about the evolution of the emotional intelligence and the acceptance of the spirit that comes with that intelligence. You know, so we have to try to establish, and we all looking for answers, but the answers may not be with us. See, the answers may not be with us if we don't continue to flash the light. We have to continually to try to expose. Now, while some of us was fortunate, Kalamu, man, he was rapping a certain thing. You know, I didn't know Kalamu, I heard about his father. Threw some folks down at 3141 North Tonti, and they was going further down in the night ward to go hunting behind where the McCarthy school was. So we just have to continually try. I mentioned in my opening statement, we have failed in here this evening in terms of adults, because outside of me mentioning that, I don't know no other adults was saying, let's send that little boy a call. So if we don't send that child a call, we in effect throw him away. So why should they have any confidence in us if we don't recognize that as being of value? That's Emmett Till. That's Malcolm.
Yes.
See? And what he was doing, trying to hunt, trying to find a way to survive. It's like the criminal justice system. They put people on probation, but it's not a pathway to job. So if there ain't no job, you coming back in here tomorrow. And what you gonna do if you don't have no job? You're gonna get into that underground economy. So what you right, brother, one thing I could say, I would say is continually to preach and be present.
Yeah, but what I want to know is,
I want to answer
what
your
happened
question.
to you all when y'all was that young?
I want to answer your
Quite
question.
sure that y'all experienced some of the same crazy things that these youngsters are experiencing right now. What happened to you all that made y'all become?
Well, let me tell you what, brother. I almost went to jail. Me, Senny, we was coming from a dance. Wanted to be listening at the Hawkette. They had a saxophone player there by the name of George Davis and John Boudreaux and them on the drums. And I'm flirting with the saxophone. So I wanted to hear George on the saxophone. So when we coming home from the dance, there had 2 youngsters walk down with us. And they said, well, look, let's go to the bakery. We want to get something. And I said, no, man, I'm going to go straight down Murray Street. I'm going by cheap and taking soap. I said, come on, Roma, stay with us. We're going to go to the bakery. We're going to get something when we split out. I said, no, man. They kept saying, come on, man. All you want to do is go sip and soap. Come on. I said, all right. But it started lightning and thundering. And I was afraid of lightning. So I didn't go. The rest of them, we all went home. But the next night, on Rampart in St. Claude, across the street from Aloysius School, St. Aloysius, which is now Brother Martin, Joe Morocco went in that place and tried to rob it, and the 2 boys we was with, they was planning the same thing. Now, if we would have went to that bakery shop, I would probably be sitting here tonight having the same kind of conversation. See? So I didn't make that. And this is why when youngsters stumble and come to me, are all just by the act of faith. Another time, we in front St. Aloysius. I'm hanging with Booby, one or 2 of the sons. So we come in Mutton Jeff. We come down the street. White boy got the street blocked from me and the sidewalk blocked. Well, Booby ain't gonna turn around. All right? And I say, Booby, let him be. Say, no, I ain't going for this. You got to move that bike. I ain't going for this. Booby, he didn't move. Booby kicked the bike down, knocked him down. White fell in the taxi. They had a taxi stand there. White man in the taxi jumped out the taxi and went at him. But Booby carried that knife. Now, we ain't but 14 or 15. Booby stabbed him. The other man come, I beat him in the head with a garbage can. Then we broke off and ran. But just supposedly, they would have called Booby and called me. We didn't start it. There's certain negative that's in the environment where that force you to answer some ways. And it's not all the time about bad decisions. Because that white man getting out that taxi was going to hurt us. Booby was defending himself. So how can we say, what would the newspaper say? They wouldn't say this man was going to attack us. They're going to say we brutalized this white kid who happened to be larger than both of us. So it's a whole lot there. Some of it coming through the channel. I think certain moments was meant to be. I think they're going to have their moment, and it may not be in our time. I have that to know.
At some point, Mama Jen